Before I was in tech, I used to be in the military. I was in the Air Force. So for those who think that visualization is this woo-woo practice or whatnot, I will say we even did this in the military.
So Alex has jumped out of an airplane over 550 times.
As part of these jumps, there is a lot that's happening. Not only are you skydiving, but we would have a lot of gear. Like we'd have smoke canisters on our feet. We would have flags that we unfurl behind us, and all of that has to happen in sequence. And so part of our mandatory requirements before we get on the plane to jump is we would do our gear checks, but we would also all take a few minutes with our eyes closed and we visualize every second of the jump.
You manifest what you believe to be true. And
Right.
Oftentimes, in order to get to that belief, you have to have evidence that it's actually possible. This reminds me of just even like, it's the whole thing, no one had run a sub 4-minute mile, and then the one guy did it, and then the next year, hundreds of people did it.
Yeah.
That's not a coincidence either. It's like if you can believe that other people can do it, then you're more likely to believe for yourself.
A lot of people don't think about, they just think, oh, if I do the work, like I'll get paid for it. And I'm like, no, you really have to negotiate. And a lot of it is just like connecting with people and knowing how to have the right conversations. And they basically were like, here's the highest that you can get paid in this role. And it was like more than he had asked for in the negotiation. And he walked down, he's like, I can't believe I would have taken this offer and it was so much more money.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Gentle Power.
We are here with Julia Martin and her co-founder, Melanie Bettis. Julia is one of my absolute favorite podcast hosts. Actually, Julia, I was going to tell you this. Every few months, because I know now I've noticed that you're not posting more episodes, but every few months, it used to be every day, and then a few weeks, I would check, is there a new episode?
It's coming. I have so many that I've planned out. I just haven't had the chance to start recording and publishing, but I'm hoping to do that in the next month. So season 3 is coming very soon.
Wow. I am so happy right now because I was worried earlier when we were preparing for this. You said something like, I used to edit my own podcast. I'm like, oh no, has she given up on the podcast?
Julia, let me just say, when you confirmed that you would be happy to come on our podcast, Gerto was so happy and she was fangirling so much. She is such a huge fan, and I've also learned a bit more about your work, and we are so excited to talk to both of you.
Yeah.
When you invited me, Gerta, I was obviously so honored, and it was so sweet, the message you sent. But immediately when you're like, this is my podcast, and I started doing research, I was like, oh my God, this is what my business partner, Melanie, does. Like we came together for this reason. Like my passion was always around manifestation and mindset, and hers was around kind of the tactical skills that you need to land a job. And so much of that was negotiation and telling your story. And so we came together and built this business. And when you asked me, I'm like, oh my gosh, it would be so great to have her on too. And we can talk about negotiating, but she's really the expert when it comes to more of the tactical part of it and the strategy.
Yeah, we would love to hear from both of you. I know, Julia, I reached out not only because I'm your biggest fan. I'm pretty sure maybe a year or two ago, you were definitely in my top 5 podcasts most listened, probably like number 1 or
you were in
number
our
2.
Spotify Wrapped, let's just say.
For sure.
I love it.
Yeah, so I try to find an excuse to chat with you, but I also remember you had at least one episode where you talked about how good you are at negotiations. I think it was around like a hotel room. Would love to hear about both like some fun examples as well as maybe your psychology or mindset around it. And then Melanie would love, then we'll turn it over to you for an intro, and then your examples and your psychology or mindset around negotiation.
It's interesting because I think I've definitely talked about this on the podcast, because I was also, I was in tech, worked at Google and then at Twitter and in business development and in sales. And so negotiation was a big part of my everyday life. In sales, people would always ask me, like, what's your secret? I was at the top of the leaderboard a lot. And we would even have negotiation experts come in, like former FBI negotiators, and everyone's fervently taking notes. What is the strategy? What are the steps? And for me, it was never really about the strategy per se or the questions to ask. It was always about how I felt, my belief in what I was doing and what I was capable of. And so while I think a lot of people, when it comes to negotiating, you're kind of preparing like what you're going to say and how you're going to respond. For me, my preparation was always around how can I show up feeling so good and make a real genuine connection with the other side and just believe that the outcome that I want, I'm deserving of and is going to happen. And so that's a lot of what I believe just in manifestation in general, but it definitely applies to negotiating, whether it's a large contract or a job or hotel upgrade. If I can go into it feeling good and feeling aligned, it's almost like it doesn't matter what we're actually talking about or how the direction of the conversation goes, because my energy sort of like creates what the outcome is. So anyway, I mean, I could dive a lot deeper into this, but I think like a takeaway here for someone listening, the way I approach it is, like one of the things I love to do is think about, okay, how would the most confident, poised future self show up to this? And I kind of like imagine what that would feel like. And I go into the negotiation or whatever I want with feeling that energy. Which I think can be really, really powerful. And I don't think we spend enough time doing that. We think too hard on like the questions.
The tactics.
The tactics. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually, one of my biggest rock star clients, I would tell her the tactics because my background is in like math and engineering. And I'm not going to lie, I had a little bit of like version to words like mindset and things like that. One of the most rock star clients I had, I would tell her the tactics, like go say this, don't say this. And then she would come back and say, I just couldn't do it. And she's like, can you help me around mindset? I'm like, I felt like, oh, you want this? Really? Like, and then that's when there was a switch in my mind. We're like, oh, okay, I guess we need to talk about mindset too, not just the tactics of it. And of course, your podcast as well has really helped sort of embrace the less tangible aspects of our life and the more of the magic of it, sort of manifestation and mindset and how you feel and all that. I'm leaning more into my feminine side there. But I want to turn it over to you to very quickly talk about your podcast because you are going to go back to it. So I would love to share with the audience what it's about so they can, follow along together with me.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to keep it relevant to your audience too, because I know people come here to listen for actual advice on negotiating and some of the tactical stuff. So I would say my podcast, a lot of it is mindset, but a lot of it is connecting with something bigger than yourself and realizing that there is something powerful about this universe that we live in. And when you learn how to use your energy and your mindset and your beliefs and intention in a certain way, it's pretty amazing what you can create and what you can call in and what you can experience. So my podcast is really about helping you intentionally create a life and a career that you love. And that led to, realizing how much these tools not only help people like you and me and people who are further along in their careers, but really people who are in high school and have their whole entire lives ahead of them. And so the podcast was really the launching pad to my main focus now, which is Dream Builders Academy, which I co-founded with Melanie. And it brings a lot of these tools, both the spiritual, but also the more tactical mindset tools into high schools and into education environments to empower younger people. Because again, these are like things that I'm like, I wish I had learned how to do this when I was younger. It would have helped me so much in my teens and my early 20s when we were navigating so much and everything was so new that, if you really learn to believe in yourself and understand the power of your mind, it can make your life so much easier and also so much more fulfilling.
Yeah. And before we turn it over to Melanie, I want to say one of the coolest things about your podcast and your work is that you've had an incredible career in tech and more broadly. And you've really integrated sort of the tangible world of like we achieve things that we want to achieve with the more spiritual world. And that's what drew me into it. I'm like, oh, she's worked at Google, at Twitter. Alex worked at Instagram. I worked at LinkedIn. Like, she's one of us. And she can talk about mindset and manifestations. So that really resonated with me personally. And I can see how for someone much earlier in their career, like a high school student, like how do I connect the dots to get there, but also from a spiritual path. Thank you so much for that. And then Melanie, would love to learn more about your background as well as how you both connected, what you're working on now, and how is that all tied to negotiations?
Similar to Julia, I've also worked in tech, so worked at Twitter, Apple. And it's funny, she kind of touched on this, but like we came together. I was always I had a course called Get Hired, and I helped with like interview prep and breaking in and salary negotiation. And she was always doing the mindset manifestation stuff. And we were just following each other a lot. And we came together saying like, both of these things are equally important, right? Like understanding how to network, understanding how to break in, understanding how to negotiate, but then also you need a strong mindset in order to achieve all the things that you want to do. And so I bring that up because I think Julia and I really came together with a goal of, there's all these things in companies like equity, diversity, like helping people, giving everyone a shot, right, to get a job. But the reality is it's not always like that. Like you have to know somebody, in order to even get an interview, if you apply online, you just never really get seen, right? And so we came together because we wanted to give everyone a shot. We wanted to teach people how to break in to land the job and to negotiate, but every single no matter where they're from. And so I think that kind of spills into the negotiation piece as well, because what I found, I've worked with a lot of nonprofits, and when I'm talking to them, I forgetting the exact nonprofit I was just working with, but I took a poll and I was like, how many of you, negotiate your salary or would negotiate your salary? None of them raised their hand. I mean, it's like a really scary thing, right? It's like, well, I don't want to screw it up is what everyone says, right? Like I've worked so hard to get that first job, and like if they offer it to me and I like negotiate, like what if they just say no, I'm on to the next, and so I think part of the work that Julia and I do with high schools is to kind of educate people to have the confidence to do all the things, including like negotiate their salary. I know you two are the experts on negotiation. I'll just share just like a couple pointers that I always go to, and you can tell me like this is probably things that you're already talking about. But for me, when I'm talking with, and this is anyone honestly, if it's an entry level all the way to like executive, for me the negotiation starts before the interview. I think when you're talking to a recruiter, when you're talking, that first conversation you have, likely if it's a recruiter, they're assessing, is this a candidate who I want to send through to interview, right? And a part of that is, do they fit the budget of the role? And so when the recruiter says, lightly, what sort of salary are you looking to make? That's not just a light question. To me, that's the first part of negotiating your salary. I think so much work has to be done up until that point. And so part of the work, to be honest, I will say I just had a baby and I've been working on my other business, so I haven't done a ton of negotiating in a while. But what I do remember is, there's so many places that you can start getting that data from, right? One of them, salary.com, like all these different places. I was actually before this on AI being like, what websites can I use to help me with negotiation? Maybe that's the first place someone could start, right? Because it gave me like all these places I can go to help figure out like what salary would be fitting for my role. Interestingly enough, like in California and New York, like a lot of them will post the salary ranges. So sometimes I'm like, look on California and New York, find a comparable position. If you're not in those places, like readjust your salary, like based on your location. Anyways, I really push people to find a range before they get into that first conversation, whether it's talking to people, gathering data, all those things. So when the recruiter says, what salary are you looking to make, or what are you hoping to get? You're posing that as more of a range of, based on the research that I've seen, based on different things posted, people I've talked to, I'm looking to make between 100 and 150,000, but please let me know if that's in, the range of the role. I feel like it's always good to throw it back on them, like see if you can see any of their cards. So anyways, I always say like a lot of the work goes before the interview starts. And I think that's a mistake people make, which is I'll negotiate at the end. And then by the end, a lot of that.
Fully agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways. Okay. So that's one of the things. And I have one other thing I think that is important, but let me pause there because I just said a lot.
No, we would love to hear more, but I'm curious how you got into this. You said you used to work in tech. Were you in a sort of a role that involved negotiations?
I did a lot of negotiation, but really my forte was breaking in to get a job. And that was what I had a whole business around it because I couldn't find a job after college. I'll give you the short spiel. I couldn't find a job after college. I applied to like 1,000 different jobs, just got automated responses. Everyone was rejecting me. I just realized that they didn't actually teach you how to land a job in college. Like no one taught that actual skill. And so I decided just to network, and I got on LinkedIn and I was just like messaging every single person I could. And within like a week of that strategy, I was like getting referred and got all these interviews. And long story short, after I landed my first job in like 2016, I wrote a book called Bold, Get Noticed, Get Hired. And that was all about how do you break in to get your first job. So that was like how I got into it. That book became a part of different college curriculums, and all these students were asking me for help. They were like, hey, you wrote a book on it. Can you help me? Can you help me? And I was just doing so many of these like calls with students that I decided, I'll just make it a business where people can hire me to help them land a job. And so it progressed into that. And then I realized I needed to understand the salary negotiation piece because that was a huge part of it. So I spent a lot of time working and developing kind of like my own formula for how to negotiate. And yeah, and I sold that as a separate course just on like negotiating like years down the road. So,
and that's actually how Melanie and I first got together too, is yes, we were following each other, but I think we both recognized, because for me, and Gerda, you've probably heard my story, but I also couldn't land a job after college. And I had all these big ambitions and dreams, and actually would land a job and then get laid off. And I got laid off 3 times over the span of a year and a half. And for me, what I realized was my mindset was shot. I was living in fear. I had no confidence, and that completely affected the outcome of my life. And so when I read this book called Infinite Possibilities, it introduced this idea of manifestation, that with intention and belief and focus, and through using tools like visualization and reframing your limiting belief, you can make anything happen. And I practiced all this, landed a job at Google, should not have gotten that job. You know, I had not the right experience. I didn't know anyone. I truly believe it was because I had done the work on my mindset and had manifested it. And so Melanie and I talked about this, and I'm like, we're both like, why don't they teach things like this in high school? We think that we need to perfect the resume, or we need to like master, interviewing skills, when in reality, it's so much of it is your mindset and also who you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And this reminds me with my first job out of college, in my senior year of college, I had some visa constraints and all that. And I remember with a job I did end up getting an offer from, I was so drained by that point. I'm like, okay, just another interview. And I caught myself. I'm like, for me, it's just another interview. For them, they're deciding if I'm it or not. So I have to show up as if it's fresh. So now that you say it, I had never realized I had to give myself like a mindset pep talk. I'm like, no, I need to show up as if it's like my first interview, even though it was tens of interviews in, and then I got it. Hard to say why, but yeah, Alex, you had a
Well,
question?
you're very qualified and great. Melanie, what you said earlier about how people think negotiations, they'll start negotiating once they get the offer. It's really just at the end. That's something that Gerda and I really try to re-educate people on, because the thing that we tell our clients and our listeners, every interaction is part of the negotiation, and the negotiations begin even when you hit that submit button on the application. Just the way that you present yourself in the application, what language you're using when you answer the responses, all of that factors into how the other side may be perceiving you. That can then impact and influence the actual negotiation when you start trading the numbers. Something that Gerda was alluding to earlier too is mindset. It has been something that has come up a lot more often with our clients more recently. And I don't know, maybe if it's something about this market or just people are realizing it's not just about the actual technical skills. I'm super curious, what are some of the first things that when someone sits down to start applying for jobs, and as they go through the interview process and they're approaching negotiations, what are the most important mindset tips that you have for people to start getting into that frame of mind?
Well, I would say, and it's actually interesting because I created a framework around this because I had so many people come to me and saying, okay, well, I want this job or I want this opportunity. Can you tell me the steps to manifest it? And I never really had an answer. It was always like, well, what do you want? And then I hear do this and then do that. And I'm like, I was getting this question so much, like, how do you manifest it? How do you like strengthen your mindset around when you want something so much. And so I created this framework, and I'll just go through it really quickly. But I think the first step is really getting clear on why you want the thing. And I know that sounds kind of like, whatever, it doesn't, why should that matter? I believe when you put a desire around it, there's like energy to it. So you're declaring it, you're saying, I want to, well, let's use an example. What's an example? What do you help your clients with?
We recently had a merger and acquisition case. So this company wanted to get bought by a bigger company. Maybe we can try that. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay, so let's say I'm one of the founders of this company, and that's the big goal, right? And like taking all of, again, the negotiations, all of that outside of it, I would say start with, okay, what is it that you really want to get at the end of the day? Like, what is the feeling there? Is it relief and peace and kind of like taking a little break? What does that feel like? I want to have more calm in my day. I want more balance. Is it, I want to feel abundant. I want to feel secure financially. I want, or is it I'm actually looking to level up in my career and I think this would give me more, figure out your why and write it down. There is something powerful to writing down why you want the actual goal, thing that you want. And sometimes it might surprise you, right? So that's the first step, declaring what you want, but really attaching to the why and to the feeling. The second, so the framework is the dreams framework. The first step is declare what you want and why you want it. The second is reframe your limiting beliefs around it. Most people have a lot of limiting beliefs around the things that they really desire, especially if they feel big and scary. I would say for this step, it's writing down all of the negative limiting thoughts and stories that you have around it. Okay, it's never going to happen. We're asking for too much. We don't have the right product. We don't have the right enough experience or whatever. Write them all down just until it's like almost a brain dump of all the reasons why it's not going to happen. And then one by one, taking each of those limiting beliefs or stories and reframing them. And you can reframe them into almost like affirmations or just really the truth. Like, we are capable. We have been resourceful. They found us, we have incredible people on our team. It's this or something better, right? Like I've already learned so much from this. Just one by one, you're going through all these limiting beliefs and you're reframing them. And you can almost feel it. Like you feel lighter. All the thoughts and stories create anxiety. And as you realize, they're just stories. They're just beliefs. And there's something really empowering about telling yourself the new story. But it's also science. Like we're creating new neural pathways in our brain. And so every time you tell yourself the new story, you're starting to believe it. And when you start to believe something, you make it happen, right? It's the whole like, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. We're trying to get our brain to believe that it's possible and you're capable and that you can do it. That's the reframe. And then the next step is envision, which is pure and simple visualization. Close your eyes and imagine it's happening. You could go to, imagining the day that the papers are being signed, or popping champagne with your friends, or even what your day is going to feel like after it happens. There's the science to visualization. We know that athletes and entrepreneurs, we actually, when we visualize or mentally rehearse something, our whole nervous system starts to believe that it's true. Our brain doesn't know the difference between something visualized and something really happening. Like the same pathways light up in your brain. So it's almost like you're practicing for that day, and you start to act differently, think differently, you respond differently, you communicate. So there's a lot of power just in terms of like the way the brain works, but also, and Gerta, you would probably love this, there's visualization, there's like a little magic to it. And I can't explain it fully, but if you've ever experienced like having pictured something in your mind and then seeing it in real life, you can't chalk it up to coincidence. There's something crazy that happens. And I've had like so many moments where I am fully living in something that I had pictured in my head. And I know that it's like from like the details in the room, I'm like, okay, this is something I visualized.
If I can interrupt for a second, what's happening with us right now, we just moved to a new place and I had envisioned it it's exactly what I had dreamed of. And I think a while ago, you may have said this about your place as well, when you were looking for a place and then you found your dream one. So I can relate to that feeling. I'm also remembering about 2 years ago, you had a worksheet on this, the dream. Yeah. I actually sat down and did it. This was 2 years ago. For some,
I love it. What was it? What was the big What was your big goal?
I'm trying to remember. It's been at least 2 years. Probably something related to maybe my career.
You should look back. I bet it's happened.
Yeah. Is this still on your website?
Yeah, and in fact, we turned it into a journal. We have the Dream Your Life journal, which is sold on our website right now, and I can link it to you, but it has the dreams framework in the back, and it walks through these steps.
That's wonderful. We will link to that. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, just to go through the last few steps, just for anyone listening. So you declare it, you reframe your limiting beliefs, you envision it, and then the A is for aligning your energy, and that is really about practicing feeling the best that you can. Kind of going back to what I was saying in the beginning. Have you guys ever like just woken up and you just feel so good, and then everything just kind of like the sky is blue, you get the call, the opportunity, and then like people are like parting the way, you get the thing for free. And then when you practice this, you start to notice on the days that I feel really good, amazing things happen. And I think there's a lot at play here, but one is the law of attraction. Like energy does attract like energy. When you're feeling your best, you're going to be attracting really good things into your life. It's not coincidence, especially if you start to practice it. And so one of the things I always say is with Align Your Energy, it's really anchoring into a feeling of gratitude every day. So it's not like, just saying 3 things you're grateful for. Like, I'm grateful for my health and my family and my job. It's really appreciating the small things, like the hot coffee you sip in the morning, the fact that the construction isn't loud while you're recording, the fact that you have the opportunity in the middle of the day to record and with your best work buddy, and and then feeling that is an energy that I bet if you can like anchor into that, you go into any negotiation and it doesn't even matter what it is, people feel it. And things shift when you feel your best. So that's a big piece of it. And then M is make moves. Like, you got to still take action, but I think the difference is taking action from a place of feeling inspired. So like, not just like sending your resume to 100 different people, but actually sending or like reaching out to that old coworker that is doing that really cool thing, and it kind of lights you up a little bit. It makes you a little nervous, but you send them the LinkedIn message. Those are the actions that lead to really cool things. It's not the forceful, mundane actions. It's the ones that feel inspiring and exciting. And then the last part of this is S, which is surrender, which means like let go of how, when these things, we want to control every part of it. We want to be like, this negotiation, I'm going to get this dollar amount and this thing. And sometimes it's like, okay, well, this or something better. I'll let go of this and maybe something better will show up, or I'll let go of, the salary negotiation and maybe I'll be able to work from home every day, or whatever it is. It's like, it's trusting that you've put in what you want, you've attached to the feeling and the desire, and then the rest will fall into place.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. Wow, I highly recommend to everyone who's listening to do the exercise, because it's so powerful. And I just love that you embody all of what you said. I can almost feel it. Like,
I was feeling it as you were describing things, like the sip of that coffee and looking out. I felt lighter.
Yeah, I want to run home and do the exercise with like 10 dreams that I have.
Yeah, you should. We can make anything happen. That's the cool part, is like once you start practicing, you're like, whoa, I am powerful.
Right, exactly. Yes, love that. I'm going to turn it over to Melanie, because I know you had a few more tactical tips. We're just balancing both of you.
Yeah, I know. This is why we work so well together too. We're like, she's my dream business partner because I'm like the dreamer and she's the doer, and then we mesh together so well when we create things and we build teams. It's like it's actually the perfect balance because she keeps it a little more grounded.
I love that. Alex and I are the same. I'm the sort of more big picture person, and he's extremely good at executing. So.
Yeah.
So Melanie, you said you have a few more tips. Would love to hear whether it's mindset or tactical, whatever you're willing to share from your secret sauce.
Yeah, of course. And I think it's funny, as Julia was talking, it made me think how I would apply what she's saying as well to something. And I was actually interested to get your thoughts on this as well. So you have someone who's making a certain salary, right? And then like, for whatever reason, this new role, it's like, it could be so much more money. And that's where I find like negotiation to be the most helpful, like someone to help with that. Because when you're so used to making a certain amount of money, and Julia and I were just talking about this the other day, like you can make a certain amount for a long time. And then to up level yourself, I do feel like a lot of what Julia is talking about is so important because you're so used to your worth being valued at a certain dollar amount. And it's kind of uncomfortable to be like, wait, I'm going to ask for like $200K more, or like I'm going to make $1 million. You know, these numbers feel so big if you've never made those numbers before, right? And that's where I feel like these things that Julia is talking about, this everything she's saying is so important because you have to believe it yourself in order to go and ask for it. So actually, I just wanted to ask you guys this, given you all are the experts, but when you're working with people who are negotiating a much bigger salary or have the potential to, like, how do you get them in the right mindset to ask for such a big number that they haven't made before?
What you are talking about is that a lot of people are anchored in their maybe last salary or current salary and taking that on to the next one. Well, as you mentioned earlier, there's laws in several states, major states in the US, where now companies have to share their ranges on their job posting. But there's also a super cool law, which I keep saying I need to look up who these angels are, who went and put this into legislation, which is in many major states, companies are not allowed to ask you about your salary history. And so these are two very important laws in negotiation, like the fact that you have the salary ranges in job postings, and then the other one where they cannot ask you what your current salary or past salary was, or basically salary history. And I think whoever took that initiative is such a guardian angel to many people, especially young people who are generally not that experienced in negotiations just inherently. That's one of the things that basically we don't want to anchor any like future jobs into what we made before. One thing that we've seen is that companies now have found a workaround to sort of deduce your salary history by asking you what your preferred salary is, because a lot of people will base it off of their past salary. And so sometimes people are surprised, like, why is this recruiter asking me 5-10 times what my preferred salary is? Why is it so important? They have their own data. They probably know how much they want to pay, but it's actually them having found a workaround, a legal way to ask you about your salary history, sort of the close proxy to that. That's one thing to keep in mind. And so the other piece is that the bands that you see that are posted, those are actually not real numbers either. If you know Negotiation 101, you don't show your cards, right? And so a lot of companies are not posting their real salary ranges there because it's like showing their cards. What they're doing is just following the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. To answer now your question, which is how do you inspire people to think big, way beyond what they imagined was possible? Well, we tell them, we helped our best performing clients until recently, we helped them increase their initial offer by $550K from initial to final. Our current best performing is we help them increase their offer by 1.7 million from initial offer to final, because we have more and more senior executives we work with. And so, or we say percentages, like our best performing client, we helped increase their offer by, I think, around 45% from initial to final. So when we share our success stories, it's like, if that has happened with other clients, we can't promise you results, but that has been possible with other people, why not with you? And so that has been one way to inspire them to think way beyond what they thought was possible.
And I think they have the reassurance, the fact that we have actually seen how it works. We have seen the typical responses that a company makes, and our process is also designed to minimize things turning south and minimize a company rescinding an offer. Because our approach is you always approach everything very professionally, very cordially, with a lot of respect. You're always showing enthusiasm for the role. You really want to have the company believe, I mean, this should come from you authentically, but have them believe that if they give you what you want, then there is a real chance that you'll actually sign the offer. If they truly believe they can close you, then they will actually negotiate with you in good faith. So all of these things combined, I think it gives our clients peace of mind that they can maybe push beyond a bit more than beyond their comfort zone from what they normally would have asked if they weren't working with us.
Yeah. I think maybe if I had to tie this to the dreams framework, maybe the visualization aspect, where like other people have done it, visualize you being.
It goes back to the core of manifestation is that you manifest what you believe to be true. And
right.
Oftentimes in order to get to that belief, you have to have evidence that it's actually possible. This reminds me of just even like, it's the whole thing, no one had run a sub 4-minute mile. And then the one guy did it, and then the next year, hundreds of people did it.
Yeah.
That's not a coincidence either. It's like if you can believe that other people can do it, then you're more likely to believe for yourself. So by sharing that it's possible, and they've negotiated 40%, they've gotten up by 500,000, all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait,
exactly.
Okay, I can do that.
We have a lot of testimonials on our website as well. And I think maybe people, and we've made sure that it's people from different like genders and races and backgrounds. And like maybe people can use that to visualize themselves. Like I could be this person who had a huge increase. Go ahead, Melanie.
Oh, no, I was going to say it's funny because I feel like I've probably worked with mostly a very different group than you guys have. It seems like you guys are working with like execs and really high up where it's probably a slightly different process, but a lot the same. But I really liked what you said, Alex, where closing the deal, it's like making them feel like you're 9 toes in all the time because they're not going to, and that's so much of it, right? Like the way that you negotiate, the way that you have the conversations. And I was thinking about that, and like Julia and I, going back to like some of Julia's stuff, like a lot of it is just connecting with people and knowing how to have the right conversations. And I was telling this to my husband like 5 years ago when he was negotiating a salary. A lot of people, they just think, oh, if I do the work, like I'll get paid for it. And I'm like, no, you really have to negotiate. And it always kind of depends too, like, I don't know how it is on the exec level, but like who you're having a lot of these conversations with, like you really have to identify like who is the negotiator in the conversation, right? Sometimes it's the recruiter, but sometimes it's your hiring manager or your hiring manager's manager. And I think it's important to like really pinpoint like who do I need to have this conversation with over the phone or even in person in some situations. My husband had identified that he felt like the recruiter had some power in this conversation and he got the offer and he was just going to take it because a lot of times, again, it was much more than he was making before. So he's like, you know what? Not touching that. Right. And I'm like, no, you're supposed to negotiate this. Like the other person who got this role is going to be making a ton more than you. And so he got on the phone with the recruiter and he's like, hey, listen, like, I love this opportunity. I'm so excited to take the role. Like, is there any way and I love using we because it's like putting them on one team, right? It's like any way can you help me get to this point? Like, can we work together to do this? And again, like, yeah, like identifying a lot of levers too. Like it might not be salary, it might be equity, it might be a lot of things, right? And it was funny because he had just been so honest with this person. They basically were like, here's the highest that you can get paid in this role. And it was like more than he had asked for in the negotiation. But it was such a good example of just like getting on a call and just connecting with someone at a human level and saying, listen, like, here's why I'm excited. What can we do to help me get across the finish line? And she just felt like, wow, this is like a really honest, good person. Let me actually tell you that you can negotiate much more than you're saying. And he walked down, he's like, I can't believe I would have taken this offer and it was so much more money. So there's just so much in that, and like what you were saying, like the way you do it, making them feel like they'll help you cross the finish line. Because the last thing I always tell people is hiring is difficult. Like hiring is not easy. So while you feel like you don't want to give it up on the negotiation, they don't want to give it up on the hiring side. Like we've all hired before. It sucks. Like trying to get through people through interviews, finding the right person. You finally get so excited about giving an offer and you're like, please take the offer, right? And so I think there's to remember that the other side of it is also really difficult. that like you have the room to negotiate and like having the confidence to do so. So that's kind of like the other things that I tell people.
Love that. And we tell people the first offer is almost never the best and final. And companies are setting some money aside just as a gesture if someone absolutely has to negotiate because they might have another better offer. And so as a gesture of like, we want you, they have at least a little bit set aside. So might as well negotiate. The other side of it is that it's a bit of a flag if someone is not negotiating at all and they're like, yes, and you say yes right away. And like, were you that desperate? Because it's such a, negotiating is such a, common business practice. And I think it's a green flag when someone negotiates and handles it really well. People might have even more faith in you in how you will handle your role. So quick story on my end, I had a very tough manager at some point in my career, but I had negotiated the offer when no one else was negotiating. And when I joined, the manager gave me some very exciting projects because they had faith. They actually told me, they're like, you negotiated really well. So I trust that you will handle these, challenging but very cool projects well. So I can see a lot of roles when someone negotiates well. It says a lot also about how good of a fit you are and how you will perform in your role in certain ways.
And Melanie, I love the story you shared about your husband. I'm so glad that he negotiated. And it reminded me of a quote that Gerta and I love that we use in our business all the time, which is, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And I'm really glad your husband negotiated at that point.
I just wanted to add something for people who sort of believe in karma and all that. Maybe they're like, no, I will always get what I deserve. Another way to think of that quote is luck favors the bold. So maybe yes, like karma and justice and luck and all that, destiny, but you still have to do your part of it, which is, I guess, the M in the dreams framework. You negotiating is you sort of nudging luck in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
And I've ever since you said this, Julia, I've kept thinking about the visualization piece and how important it is. I think we often always hear about, okay, you should visualize it, think about it, and then people don't sit down and take the time to visualize. And that reminded me of before I was in tech, I used to be in the military, I was in the Air Force. So for those who think that visualization is this woo-woo practice or whatnot, I will say we even did this in the military. So I used to be on the Air Force parachute team. I was a parachute instructor. I taught other military members.
Can I jump in, no pun intended, with a fun fact about your parachuting?
Sure.
So Alex has jumped out of an airplane over 550 times.
And yeah, wow. it was a long time ago, but all of those jumps happened in a 3-4 year period too. So it was very condensed.
So like every day almost.
Yeah, almost every day, and
sometimes multiple times.
Yeah, on some days I would jump 10 to 20 times. It would just be all day. So it was super fun. A lot of work as well. But part of the jumping. So I was also on the demonstration team where we would jump into military air shows, into sporting events, stadiums, representing would be the ambassadors and, representing the Air Force. But as part of these jumps, there is a lot that's happening. Not only are you skydiving, but we would have a lot of gear. Like we'd have smoke canisters on our feet. We would have flags that we unfurl behind us, and all of that has to happen in sequence. And so part of our mandatory requirements before we get on the plane to jump is we would do our gear checks, but we would also all take a few minutes with our eyes closed, and we visualize every second of the jump, exact where we're sitting on the plane.
I didn't know this.
Oh yeah, I don't think I've ever shared this with you. When we walk out to the ramp, what am I looking at once I jump out? How long am I jumping for? You and if you're jumping with other people, where are they around you? Once you open your parachute, what are each so we would visualize it and do the jump in our heads before we even get on the plane. And so the whole thing about visualization, it just reminded me that we also did that in the military as well.
Yeah, the U.S. Air Force.
I love that. And imagine doing that taking 5 minutes the morning of a big interview or a negotiation and imagining yourself walking into that room confident, imagining how it's going to feel when you share what you want and how it's received. And even if things go a little bit differently, you've practiced it. Like, you can feel that energy and you take that with you. And like, I can't tell you how powerful that is and how helpful it is for someone, instead of like starting your day and being nervous and then going in there, like, you can go into something being like, I've been here before. I can handle this.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I was so drawn to your podcast, because I could finally connect these very two different parts of me, like the very tactical, practical, sort of logical, and then sort of the more hard
Mystical.
to pin down, mystical. Yes.
Yeah.
I had another question for you, which is, I remember you telling a lot of negotiation stories on your podcast, super cool stories. I think one was about you being able to get on the set of the show Friends. Was that?
Whoa.
I know, you were very young at the time, and then I think you negotiated like an upgrade of like a girls get together hotel.
Oh, I do that all the time. Like,
Me too.
I actually, when I check into a hotel, I just
The
ask
first
for
thing you do. I'm the same, exactly.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, it's so funny because, like, I think a lot of people just don't ask,
Right, exactly.
And if the hotel has space and they have a suite that's sitting
it
empty,
costs them nothing. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask. And the other part of this, and this is a little bit like, you had mentioned, like leaning into your feminine, but I think there's a really big piece of negotiating that is around being kind and connecting with the person, not just connecting with them in terms of like, okay, we are in this together. But my grandmother used to always say this, and I use it all the time, but she would say, Julia, to be interesting, be interested. And I think it's the best piece of advice, because when you ask people genuine questions about their life, they think you're the most interesting person in the world. Try it.
Right.
Go to a party and go find someone and just ask them about what they do and their hobbies, and like, ask follow-up questions. They're going to be like, oh, that girl's super interesting. That guy's like awesome. So a lot of times for me, it's not just going in and asking for the thing, but it's going in being like, hi, how are you? Oh, where did you get that thing? But like from an authentic place.
Right.
And then, of course, like, you ask for something and they're like, I really like this person. She took the time out of her day to ask me a lot about myself. Like, I would love to do something in return.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the set of friends thing, because that was definitely, I was always a manifester. I just didn't have a word for it growing up, but I would visualize. And this is another how visualization works. But I was obsessed with the DB show Friends, like beyond obsessed.
Same.
I love it. You're my kind of people. But I would literally record on my TiVo every episode, and then I put it on like cassette tapes, and then take out the commercials, and just because I didn't buy the actual DVDs. But anyway, printed out scripts. I had every coffee table book of Friends. And I would take this one coffee table book that had all the behind the scenes, and there was like, I just remember vividly one photo of like the cast hanging out on the orange couch in between scenes. And I would close my eyes and I would picture myself there with like seeing the audience is over there and there's cameras, like sitting there talking to Jennifer Aniston. And I did this all the time. Like, I just imagined what it would be like to be on this set. Long story short, I'm living in I was in Palo Alto. I grew up in Palo Alto. And we drove down to drive my sister to school at USC. And I was 14 years old, and I told my parents, just drop me off at Warner Brothers Studios. And they're like, what? I'm like, I'm gonna go on the set of Friends. And they're like, Julia, no, you can't do that. You're 14, and also look, because we were in the area, and they're like, there's lines, and people are coming in from all over the world. Like, you need tickets, and I'm like, no, just drop me off. And they knew, like, I was a manifest, and they dropped me off, and I ended up just, saying, I'm Julia Riley, and I got driven in a golf cart. I said, I'm going to be on this, I need to go backstage. Drove me. I went backstage, sat on the orange couch all day. My parents had no idea where I was. They were terrified, but I had my whole experience. I never talked to Jennifer Aniston, but I sat and talked to David Schwimmer for a while. I mean, I literally watched a full episode being recorded from backstage. And what's so crazy is like, I looked around and I'm like, I've been here. It was the same thing. I'm like, I've been here in my mind so many times. And it was almost exactly how I had imagined. Even where the cameras were and like the whole feeling, it was smaller than I thought. And anyway, I did that. And again, the next year I did the same thing. Went back, 15 years old, told my parents to drop me off. I got backstage again.
Yeah. Doesn't this sound like something I would do?
Yeah, this really does sound like yours. And I'm just mind blown because you were 14, 15 years old. To be that bold, and you were saying luck favors the bold, right?
Yeah,
and
it's boldness too. I would say for sure boldness. Yeah. But it was also like, I think we kind of lose this, and that's why I think there's this sweet spot in childhood, even like early teens, where we have this really strong belief and confidence. You can make anything happen. And for me, like, it wasn't, people called me lucky a lot, but I had such unwavering belief in certain things, including like, I'm going to go backstage and meet the whole cast. And that's what manifestation is. But then we get, all of our beliefs start getting clouded and people tell us no. And then we start to really doubt ourselves. And then we go through angst. And I think it really takes a toll on our mindset, but more importantly, on our belief in ourselves and what's possible. And that's why so much of the work is really around getting to that place of just believing in yourself again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to share that quote?
Yes. You looked at me. One of my favorite quotes from the movie Amazing Grace is, we are too young to realize that certain things are impossible, so we will do them anyway. And what you just said...
Literally just got full goosebumps. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I feel like I could talk to you.
We can talk anytime. I'm so happy to chat with you. And next time I go to SF a lot. We have our little mini offsite, so we can go and grab a coffee too.
I would die. Please hit me up. One question that I was going to ask, but I think I can deduce your answer. But the question was going to be, one of the secret sauces for us, spoiler alert, is that we believe in gentle persistence. And so I've noticed that with the hotel room that you asked for an upgrade, which by the way, we recommend doing that for flight seats as well. I do that as soon as I go to check in or go to the gate. I always ask for, is there any chance I could, I don't know, be in an aisle seat or like an upgrade and all that. But I remember your story with asking for a hotel upgrade. You went back again and again, which is very aligned with what we recommend, which is gentle persistence. And I was curious, like, I guess which came first? Is it the sort of the mindset or the persistence and affecting each other? Sometimes action, I guess if I zoom out, it's like, is it action or belief which brought which? But sometimes like a chicken and egg thing.
I think belief comes first. I think there are certain things where I'm not persistent because it doesn't feel right. If it's like a hard no, or if it's like not something that I really want, it's kind of like you ask, and then I'm okay, like being like, this doesn't feel like it like is going to happen or needs to happen. I'm fine either way. But if I really, really desire something, it's usually because deep down, I believe it's possible. Right. And so with that, then I think it is the persistent action. And it's not like persistency to the point of being obnoxious, but I think that if you believe something can happen, it's because there is like this opening and it is possible. I think that's, it's all intuition based. And you kind of know deep down if there's this window of possibility or if something is probably open to happening, then I think you can lead from that. So I do feel like the belief comes first and then the persistent action is next.
Then how do you balance the belief versus like dreaming something that feels out of reach?
There's something that I didn't coin, but it's called the ladder of believability. And it's sort of like training your brain to believe something is possible. So if we're going back to like negotiating your salary and you're making $200,000 per year and you're going for this job and they're asking what you want, it's really hard to go ask for 1.5 million a year.
Right.
It's even hard for our brain to even wrap our minds around how this could be possible. Could you get to 300, 350? Like, this is the same framework we use for anything, whether it's like, let's say you have a business and you have a goal to make $10,000 a month. It's going to be hard to like have a goal for 50K, but can we do 15K? And then you kind of climb up this ladder so it's easier to believe in smaller increments almost. That's the way I usually coach people, is like, let's come up with a goal, a dream that feels really bold and exciting and a little scary, but not so out of the realm of possibility that you can't believe it yourself. We'll get to that big goal once we get to the kind of secondary one. And so we take little steps, and it's really more because it's hard to make a really big jump in our minds to believe something that's really big if we're jumping from 0 to 100.
We can wrap it up here. Thank you so much for that. And now I'm already dreaming of an episode where you guys, whether it's on our podcast or your podcast, where you guys talk about visualization, like from the military, parachuting. And Alex actually used to be extreme sports athlete, where he was doing base jumping, which is the #1 most dangerous sport in the world. The one time
Retired. I am retired.
The one time
my God, that's what they say. It's that base jumping is crazy.
Yeah. I've never given him an ultimatum. We've been together 14 years, and I have.
I didn't know you guys were a couple.
We
are. We are.
10 years married, 14 together.
So we're a husband, wife, business, podcast hosts.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's so fun. I mean, that's amazing. Oh my God, I love it. I can't believe I didn't pick up on that.
We try to stay professional on camera.
I thought you guys were like best friends. That's so cute.
We are also best friends. Yes, husband, wife, and best friends. But one time I've given Alex an ultimatum. It was around base jumping. I'm like, because it's literally the #1 most dangerous sport in the world. So I was like, can you quit? Because I don't want a dead boyfriend.
They say that the only way you leave the sport of base jumping is by walking away or death. There's no in between. Julia, would love to hear, how can people learn more about the work that you're doing? You mentioned something about an academy or a course.
And a journal.
What's currently on your plate?
Melanie and I are really focused on growing our education company. We right now our biggest, this by the way totally manifested. I used to say when I worked at Twitter and I was in sales, I'm like, I need to find some clients in Hawaii because that's where I want to take business trips. I'm like over the New York and Texas trips. I'm like, I want to go to Hawaii. And we, as Melanie started and I started our business, our #1 client is the state of Hawaii. So we go once a quarter to Hawaii for business, which is a dream.
Wow.
But we're creating curriculum for the Department of Education there. In fact, we're building a new one right now all around financial literacy that is so cool. So people can go to our website, wearedreambuilders.com. But what I mentioned is the journal, which was kind of like a collab between my business, Dream Your Life, and our business. But it's sold on the website, and it's really a tool to get your mindset in the best possible place. So it's a daily journal, just emotional clarity, writing in your intention, writing your priorities, an affirmation, and gratitude. And I have examples of how to write your gratitude statements, how to write intentions, how to write affirmations. But it only takes you 5 minutes in the morning to do. I have men and women who love this journal, and personally, I can feel it. My day flows so much better when I go in with intention and feeling good. All the things we talked about today. So then in the back of that journal, there's the dreams framework for your big juicy goals. And so it's, filling in the declare, the reframe. So for anyone listening who is interested, we sell it on our website as well.
Okay. I'm going to run and buy it as soon as we hang up. And the dreams exercise I did, like I said, 2 years ago, and it was so wonderful.
Yeah, we'll include all the links to what you had mentioned in the show notes so that it's easy for people to find. And you had mentioned that you and Melanie make it out to San Francisco here and there. So please Let us know when you do. We can talk about Friends visualization. By the way, Gerta is also
A
one of
huge
the
fan.
biggest Friends fans
I
that I
learned
know.
English through Friends, so it's very
Oh
close to
my
my
God,
heart.
I love it. We are so similar. You're my vibe.
I don't know if we'll include this, but if you ever need a place to crash in SF, now we got a bigger place in my dream home, so would love to have you.
Well, Julia, enjoyed this so much.
What an honor
Yeah.
to have you.
Oh,
I
thank
feel
you.
like I didn't ask in my visualization 2 years ago with your process. I feel like I should have visualized having you on my podcast, but it was way outside of the realm of possibility for me. And this is such
No,
a
well,
dream.
sometimes we're always manifesting. We're always subconsciously manifesting things. So maybe this
Right.
was like a subconscious manifestation, which is just as sweet.
Awesome.
Love it. Well, thank you
so much for
guys.
your time. I know you're very busy and really appreciate having you. I hope to stay in touch, maybe for a part 2 or just a in-person catch up.
Definitely. Thank you, Yurta. Thank you,
Thank you.
Alex.
All right,
Have a
thank
great
you,
day.
Julia.
Bye.
Bye.